Welcome to Scorched Earth and a collective shadow read for Scorpio. Okay. I'm going to say that this is for June, but I feel like whenever you find this video, it's for you. Now, this is something that I've wanted to do for a while, but it was getting this oracle deck here, the Oracle of Black Enchantment, that's kind of spurred me to do it. It's very rough and ready, it's quite raw, and I'd like some feedback on it. Because I feel like collectively we are born with a particular shadow that we need to work through. It forms part of our life lesson, right? I did a reading for myself straight off the bat, and not only was it quintessential Leo, but it was also absolutely opposite for what was going on with me at the moment. So the idea is I'm going to pull 3 cards, one for the main concern, one for the root cause, and one for the recommendation. Right? And the idea of it is it's getting you to look at those things that you don't consciously acknowledge, right? So by definition, it's going to be uncomfortable. It's not things that you want to hear about yourself. But in order that you become a full and complete human being in and of yourself, you have to acknowledge the dark side of you as well, right? Because then you can work on it, and then you can, acknowledge it, and it stops being a subconscious fear driver. Right? I am a shadow worker, this is really important to me, and if people are interested in this and they get something from it, then I'll look at expanding it and making it something a bit more comprehensive, but for now we'll just go with the 3 cards. So 3, 2, 1. First card is number 30. Here it is. That's the main concern. 2 and 1. The root cause. Interesting imagery. And the recommendation. That is really interesting imagery, actually. The recommendation is this card here. Now, I'm not terribly familiar with these cards, so I am going to pull up the meanings of them. Bear with me a second. I'll get them learned in time, I'm sure. Okay, so the main concern is this one here, card number 30, and it's called The Violinist. And it says, the violinist plays a hypnotizing melody to a group of entranced maidens. The dark notes transform into flying demons, which lures the girls into an unbreakable spell. Now, if that, Scorpio, is not what you do to people, then I don't know what is. Like, I've fallen under the spell of Scorpios who've done this. And its dark meaning is seduction, dark charm, playing with one's emotions, mass brainwashing, propaganda. Now, interestingly, I have done both the extended and the main YouTube reading for June for Scorpio. And what has come out in those is a sense of being a performer, right? For whatever reason, and the reasons came out in the extended that you might see that, like you've never placed much value on emotion. And there's been a lot of sex, and there's been a lot of, impressing people, but little emotional connection, and in fact are running away from an emotional connection, right? So it's seducing like numbers of people, but never really getting anything out of it. Not the thing that you crave, and not the thing that you desperately want, but that thing that you don't acknowledge that you desperately want. Now, the root cause is card number 9. And that is called the Sick Witch. A witch filled with sickness and decay vomits into a golden chalice. The 2 deplorable creatures stand beside her. One offers assistance while the other scratches himself in confusion. Notice that she's got in her hand the appendage of one of these sick creatures, the one that's kind of scratching itself in confusion. But notice how she's vomiting into a cup, right? And I have just been talking at length in both the YouTube video and the extended about your treatment of your own emotional needs. Like, it's quite a visceral image. You've literally vomited into your own cup because something about it makes you uncomfortable, right? The notion of love and emotions and all that sort of thing, right? Quite often you have retreated spectacularly, and what came out in the extended to a degree was that there was one particular relationship that you kind of feel like you really fucked yourself over with, right? You got hold of that appendage, right? It's separating sex and emotion, right? Not letting yourself feel the emotion. And in fact, polluting it yourself, right? Now the recommendation is card number 3, which is the gardener. A housemaid, tired of the troublesome weeds growing wild in her garden, proceeds to behead the plants with a quick snip from her pruning shears. Right? And this means getting rid of problems once and for all, taking personal responsibility, eliminating negativity. Right? What you have done, Scorpio, and I say this with love because I do love Scorpios, right, is that whenever there's been anything that's grown in your garden that looks like it might have emotions connected to it, you have snipped it right off, right? You're not interested in it. Now, the wider meaning of this card is kind of asking you to stop looking at those as weeds, stop looking at them as problems, right? Because I feel like in the snipping off of these things that you've been doing here, right, you are depriving yourself of the beauty of these plants, right? It's almost like you put the legwork into growing them, but then the second they start showing something emotional at the top, you've scuttled away from it. Now, instead, consider that what you should be cutting the top off is the need to do that in the first place. It's like taking personal responsibility for your own emotional state, right? And acknowledging, and I think this is really important for Scorpios, acknowledging that you have feelings and that you have emotions, and that sometimes being open to receiving those emotions from other people is not a bad thing. Sometimes being vulnerable is not a bad thing. Like I said before, like almost every Scorpio that I've ever known in my life, and I've known some and I've loved some, are born with this incredible capacity for love and emotion, and they all seem to suffer some sort of event early on which makes them clamp down and associate emotion with pain, right? And that humans are very pain avoidant creatures, and it seems like Scorpios then spend the rest of their lives trying to avoid anything that reminds them of that previous pain, right? It's time to take responsibility for that now. It's time to unpack and start looking at things. And maybe for some of you that's going to involve, going for counselling. But collectively, the energy is now kind of shifting into questioning why it is that you do what you do, right? Why you run so hard from it, right? Look at these triggering events from your past. Look at the cycles that you've been in, right? And start taking responsibility for those, because only in the doing that can you start shifting things, right? And this is quite important because what came out in the YouTube read for June was that you feel very trapped, feel very stuck, and new starts that you're wanting to make you can't do because you're carrying too much baggage with you, right? It's time to release all of this negativity that is associated with emotions, right? And start looking for ways in which this can feed your soul, because you're actually starved of it, Scorpio. You're so desperate for it, and yet you are the one who will not let yourself have it. So I'm going to leave it there. I would love some feedback in the comments, please. And I know that this is uncomfortable, and I know this is probably going to piss a few people off because nobody wants to look at their shadow, really. It's uncomfortable work, but ultimately it is worth it, right? Tell me what you think. Tell me if there's something that you would like, if this is something you would like me to continue with and expand upon, potentially. But ultimately, I'm just trying to get you thinking and questioning yourself, right? Not overthinking, questioning objectively, releasing and moving on. I love you all very much. I'll see you soon.